It's the Security Weekly News, and it's episode 386. Welcome to the week of 12 May 2024. I had to interrupt our elaborate conversation about modding servers in order to do the show, but I guess we could have just recorded that too. It's probably pretty interesting. We got for you today, 3,000 years ago, Dell, Robocalls, PyPI, Cinterion, I don't know how to say it, Cacti, Chat-GPT, Windows, Josh Marpet, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Application Security Weekly delivers interviews and news from the worlds of AppSec, DevOps, and all the other ways people find and fix software flaws. Join us as we explore how the latest news highlights modern security practices or reminds us of the missing ones. We also bring insights from interviews on topics from training to threat modeling, from open source tools to cloud-native techniques, plus an occasional reference from new wave to synthwave. Find us at securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Application Security Weekly wherever you pick your podcasts.
All right, it's the Security Weekly News from exile on the island of Elba. I'm Doug White. Welcome to the show. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your favorite platform, and we'll throw in a set of cat nail trimmers and, I don't know, this plant. I mean, whatever, Aaron's plant. I mean, now how much would you pay? It's final exam week here in Rhode Island, so it's fun to walk around campus and watch people cry, vomit, run shrieking into the bay, that kind of thing. Kind of like those old Christmas parties we used to have at Paul's Security Weekly before they closed the studio down. Seen all that and more. All right. Well, Dell got breached, and they allegedly, according to them, lost 49 million customer records. So Dell's begun sending notifications to the victims of this breach. The attacker was called Menelik, or Menelike, I don't know how you say it, but Menelike put the data up for sale on the breached hacking forum on the 28th of April. Moderators, of course, took that post down shortly thereafter. The post claimed to have the full name, company name, address, city, province, postal code, country, the Dell service tag of the system shipping date, warranty plan, Dell customer numbers, and Dell order numbers, along with your hat size, belt size, and in your last weight that you lied about at your doctor's office. But they had everything. They claimed that at least 7 million rows in this data set were individuals rather than companies. Menelike attested that they were able to steal the data by finding a portal, which is for partners, resellers, and retailers that could be used to look up order information. So, a useful portal. I've used that portal. You've probably used that portal as well to look up that, service tag on the laptop to see what kind of stuff was inside of it, or servers or whatever. Once they had that portal, they basically subscribed and created some fake company accounts and fake names. And within 2 days, apparently, they'd been granted access to the portal. So they don't seem to have any restrictions. And I remember doing that, and they didn't ask for anything. I just logged in and said where I worked, and they let me create an account, and I could look up my service tags. And yeah, a lot like Menelike, I looked up some random service tags just to see what I could find. And it was like, wow, yeah. Well, Menelike said they created a program, probably a script, that generated 7-digit service tags, easy enough to do, and then submitted them to the page back in March, and that allowed them to scrape all kinds of information that was returned along with the service tag. According to the attacker, there were 783,575 PowerEdge servers in the collection, 5.2 million Optiplex devices, along with 447,000 or so Alienware laptops, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. Menelike claimed they contacted Dell by email on the 12th of April and provided the email that they had sent to Bleeping Computer. And they also reported the bug to the security team. And they provided proof that they did this. But before they did all those nice things, they harvested 49 million records. So, criminal, not a criminal. Menelik said that Dell never replied to the original email and didn't fix the bug until 2 weeks later, which was just around the time that the data went up for sale on Breached. Now, Dell said that they, yes, had received the email, but declined to provide any other information about what went on after that. And they did, it had been turned over and was now an active law enforcement investigation. Break the law comes looking for you. Now, you aren't going to like this, but you probably need to start considering adding all this API type access to your network diagrams. If you've got these things connected to your system, if you're using them, if you're retrieving data from them totally legitimately, all this interconnectivity is creating a lot more paths to your data as well. Or you could just embrace the no privacy, lifestyle, cast off all your clothes and run naked through the field singing old Tiny Tim songs. I mean, I'll leave you with that image. Not that I ever did that. That police report called it John Doe. Well, the Federal Communications Commission, or the FCC in the United States, named the first officially designated robocall threat actor. The name is Royal Tiger. And Royal Tiger is a group of attackers that are based in India, the United Kingdom, the United Arab Emirates, and the United States. They got a cool name out of it, too. They probably got some black velvet tiger paintings and stuff on order. Basically, what this group does is place robocalls, which impersonate government agencies, banks, utility companies, and they use spoofed phone numbers, which make it look like they're local. And they're trying to sell you fake credit card interest rate reduction offers. Yay. Yeah, those are always legit. Well, reputedly, the group is led by someone called Prince Jashvantal Anand and Kaushal Bahafsa, and is linked to a bunch of illegal calls in the United States based out of businesses called Ilum Technology Communication Limited, PZ Telecommunication LLC, and One Eye LLC. And so basically all this stuff has led to a new FCC robocall classification system, which is called the Consumer Communications Information Services Threat, or CSIST. And it's designed to help international, federal, and state regulatory groups and law enforcement identify and track people who are abusing telco infrastructure and take appropriate action against them, because we all hate robocalls. I mean, everybody. Does anyone still answer these things? I've always just asked myself, do they actually sell anything with this stuff? I mean, does anybody get a call going, "Hi, it's Mark from," and I'm like, hang up. I mean, I don't care if the number looks like it was my mother's house. I still, and if it was from my mother's house, it'd be pretty creepy at this point. But regardless of that, nobody, I just can't believe anybody goes for this stuff. But of course, there's all this new stuff too about deep fakes and political messages and all sorts of stuff that are sent out via robocall. I mean, I'd be happy if they could just get that guy, Mike, who calls me twice a day about my car's warranty, to stop. I mean, that would be a start. I mean, so the FCC takes actions against these people, which include things like cease and desist letters. I hope they send those out as often as the robocallers call me, but I bet they don't. They can remove you from the robocall mitigation database. I'm not sure what that means, and of course they can issue forfeiture orders. That last one sounds kind of scary. I mean, I wonder what you forfeit. Is it like something good? I mean, that would really have an impact, right? I mean, if you have to forfeit like your office furniture, well, I'm scared. But if it was something like they're going to come take a kidney, I think that might actually work, right? I mean, I'm sorry, Mike, but you've called Doug too many times about that car warranty. So what's it going to be, left or right? You get to pick. I mean, think how much good that would do. Nice people need kidneys. Robocallers, well, I mean, would anybody really complain if Mike, maybe ended up fed to rabid pigs in a pit out in the countryside? Sorry, I really don't like Mike, and Mike really overdoes it with the car warranty thing. So the U.S. Federal Trade Commission did say that they received 853,935 complaints for imposter scams last year, and they reported losses of nearly $2.7 billion to these scams. So obviously somebody is going for it. You hear that, Mike? They're coming for you, baby. I mean, they are. Or maybe they'll just send you another cease and desist letter. Maybe they should offer to sell warranties against robocalls so they could just constantly robocall the robocallers, and it could end up in kind of a denial of service thing. I've thought about doing that myself. Well, PyPI, our old friend, is a repository for Python packages, and it's had plenty of problems, like most repositories in the last few years. I mean, when you have a repository and anybody can upload things to it, of course people are going to upload bad things. That's been going on since the bulletin board days. But a malicious PyPI package, which was based on a very popular PyPI package called requests, was found to contain a backdoor hidden in a PNG file. Imagine that. The package is called request-darwin-lite, and it is a fork of a legitimate and very popular requests Python package. And it was published to the repository on Friday per libraries.io. The package was quickly detected by Phylum's automated risk detection platform, and they published a blog post on it on the same day. The setup, it contains a setup.py file in there, and the item is called PyInstall that is executed when you start to install this package in your Python environment. Now, on Mac OS, PyInstall decodes and runs a base 64 encoded command that looks for a specific UUID. And nobody knows why. I mean, that part's kind of strange at this point, because a UUID is a specific identifier for very, very specific hardware. So it's not clear if they were trying to identify a very specific device, or they were testing something, or what. But it's pretty weird. Now, if that UUID hits a match, the package then reads from the PNG file that looks a lot like the legitimate request logo. But unlike the legitimate request logo, this file is 17 megabytes, which is a lot larger than the logo file for request, which is only 300 kilobytes. It contains a Golang binary that is flagged on VirusTotal as an OSX sliver backdoor. And if you're not familiar with that, Sliver is an open source command and control framework like Cobalt Strike that's supposed to be used for red teaming. So it's very popular. It's free. But of course, it can also be used by attackers, since, lockpicks can be a fun hobby and you can have them in your car. Only in Rhode Island, that would also be considered a burglary tool. And you might have to register with the state police, because I remember when I first moved to Rhode Island, I was talking to the state police and I was telling them about all the stuff we had in our physical pen testing kit. And I was like, a lot of the stuff listed in this law that says this is burglary tools would be in my pen testing kit. And he said, don't worry about it. And I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter till it does, right? But I just wanted it on the record that I'm not a burglar. Now, all the versions of requests for Darwin Lite were removed from PyPI, but the package had been downloaded 417 times before it was removed. So lesson, maybe wait a bit before you download new packages. I think that's certainly a thing. Definitely make sure the package you're downloading, you are sure you're downloading what you think you're downloading. And I really think you need to start thinking about how you control this with your devs, because somebody's going to download something like this eventually, because this is just a standard dev process now, right? I mean, you sit down to code something and you go look and see if there's libraries that can facilitate it. And if they are, and it's sitting right there, you go, wow, do I really need to write this random number generator when there's such a nice little tool right here already built? Just be careful. Cinterion cellular modems. Well, Cinterion cellular modems have some critical flaws that may permit remote code execution and unauthorized privilege escalation. Well, that's nothing new. But who uses these things? Well, IIoT devices use them. And IIoT, if you're not familiar, is the industrial Internet of Things. And these devices are found all over the place in industrial, healthcare, automotive, financial, and telco sectors, as well as lots of other places too. All kinds of infrastructure stuff uses these kind of devices. Okay. Well, Kaspersky ICS CERT said in a blog post that a heap overflow vulnerability within the modem's SUPL message handler was the most alarming bug that they found, among others. That was on the 10th of May. Now, that flaw could allow an attacker to execute the arbitrary code that they've written, wait for it, via SMS messaging. Ouch. The access would also allow the attacker to manipulate RAM and flash memory, which increases the likelihood that they'll just take over the whole device. Because if they can manipulate flash memory, boom, you can do whatever you want. Now, apparently, these things are used all over the place to allow for remote monitoring and connections of things like water control systems and just about everything else. Modern ICS valve controllers and things like that may well be managed remotely from a great distance, and they very likely connected to a cellular modem. It's not like back in the days when Ed Norton had to head down into the Fifth Avenue sewer main with a pipe wrench and a machete. Nope. Not to mention, these devices are inside of that mythical OT area, which probably should be off limits, and which the ICS people will always tell you is, security through obscurity, which is stupid, but they do it anyway. But it's kind of like that other phone that's sitting in the control room that has an outside line. That one was green in our facility, and we had them, but they had a warning printed on them. There's like a big sign over them that said, "This is an outside line that should only be used for absolute emergencies." The emergencies they'd outlined, I don't know exactly who you would call, because when you call the county sheriff and go, "Well, you got a big leak over here and pretty much everybody's going to die, including me, but you might want to send some deputy sheriffs over here or something." Yeah. Well, I mean, they don't want anybody confusing that with the red phone or the gold phone or any kind of thing like that. Well, the current mitigation suggestions that they're recommending say you should restrict physical access to the device, which you should have been doing anyway, but it's kind of difficult, cellular, all that kind of stuff. And the president of Viaku Labs said that, quote, "The mitigations are a weak defense, and ultimately these devices will have to be patched. In the meantime, I guess I would say watch them very carefully to make sure that, that your cellular controlled robot flamethrower dogs might be looking at you kind of funny this morning. Or maybe you need to call Ed Norton out of retirement." Not the actor, if you don't get the reference. I know if you have to explain the reference, it's not funny anymore, but it's a reference to the Honeymooners if you've never seen that classic television show. But I mean, basically, I would say isolating these devices in, a separate VLAN, which you should have been doing anyway, and watching them carefully to make sure that somebody's not compromising them, because somebody may well be. Oh, Cacti. We all love Cacti. Cacti, if you don't know what it is, an open source network monitoring and fault management framework that a lot of us have set up over the years for clients and for ourselves and so forth, because we couldn't afford something like SolarWinds. Those commercial products can tend to be a little bit expensive, and Cacti is open source. More than a dozen flaws were addressed, which included two critical issues which could allow the execution of arbitrary code. And we see that a lot lately, right? One of those flaws is an arbitrary write vulnerability in the package import feature, which would allow execution of arbitrary PHP code on the server. Yeah, it runs in PHP, sorry. But it's it can run that. And if you could do that, you can do remote code execution on the server. Yeah, another ouch. The users would have to be authenticated, though, and they would have to have import templates enabled on their account. So if you have some control there. The other big flaw there was a command injection vulnerability, which would allow an unauthenticated user to execute arbitrary commands on the server when the register_argc_argv option of PHP is on. So you may want to check your conf files if you're running PHP for this. Because that can, that alone would pretty much put a big restriction on it. 10 of the 12 flaws are found in all versions of Cacti, and 2 others are in the development versions, 1.3.x. There are public proof of concept exploits available for these things now, and it is recommended that users of Cacti update your instance to the latest version as soon as possible, because if you don't, you're going to get got. And that would be sad, because I like Cacti. Well, it's always amazing to me, and also not, of course, because I'm an extreme cynic, but it's always amazing to me how people cling to old operating systems. Sometimes you have to, sometimes you have something that just won't run. You can't seem to bring it up into the modern age, and I maintained that old DOS computer at Lou's house for 20 years so he could run those Fortran compilers and not have to pay for a new license for his Fortran compiler, because he bought a lifetime license and it only ran on DOS. And it works, and Fortran's really important, and so we'll keep that puppy running. I don't even know. That thing was it was disgraceful. Setting it up alone was a challenge. But, and you all the time see crash systems running Windows XP or who knows what, in an airport or something, and go, really? But, well, Microsoft has issued a warning to you. Bill Gates is shaking his finger at you and saying tisk tisk from behind the walls of his kingdom. But basically, the warning they issued says if you're still running Windows 10 21H2, there are only a few weeks of service remaining for enterprise and education users. So if you are one of those users, be advised that they're not going to put any more patches out for Windows 10 21H2 and older in just a couple of weeks. This particular version of Windows 10 was released in 2021 with the November update, and support ended in 2023 for all the Home, Pro, and Pro editions for workstations. But in June, coming right up, of 2024, the support will be stopped for Enterprise, Education, and IoT Enterprise editions. You can still use what they call the long-term servicing channel versions, or the LTSC. Those are good until 2027. So I guess we will be seeing old Windows 10 crashed boxes in airports for a long time to come. But IoT Enterprise LTSC version will actually extend until 13 January 2032, which is starting to sound like it may be after my long-term services arrangement runs out. I might be kind of old by then. Well, not that bad, but it's all about how many drugs you took back in the 80s. So you can update to 22H2, and you may have already done that automatically, but you should probably check. That will continue to be serviced for a while if you just really want to keep Windows 10, or if you can't run Windows 11. I have a laptop that won't run Windows 11 because, it has some additional security requirements in the processor, and if you don't have those, you can't upgrade. But it is a warning about the end of Windows 10 being just over the horizon for enterprise and education. And a lot of people are running Windows 10 in education as well as enterprises. So don't be that billboard that blue screened into Windows NT in 2010 that I saw in an airport. Yeah, it literally was Windows NT. I was like, wow, plan now for a brighter tomorrow. Well, sometimes when it comes to the old interweb, I feel like Eldron talking about Isildur. I was there. I was there 3,000 years ago when Isildur took the ring. That kind of thing. You feel like that when you see the internet? I mean, I do. I mean, I've used every web browser and search engine that ever was in common use at some point in time. I mean, Northern Light, Ask Jeeves, Metacrawler. I even ran Veronica and Archie. Yeah, Archie came out in like 1990. I've used Lynx so I can surf the web in the finest text-only environments. Yep. I was there, Gandalf. I saw attack ships burning off the shoulder of Orion. I did. Well, Old Home Week and the Witch King of Angmar aside, Google is changing the way their search engine works. They're no longer going to give you a list of the top 100,000 sites which reference balloon animal pornography when you search for it, but rather they're going to provide you with an AI-generated reply to your search. I mean, it seems that this is just likely another period of change before we move to the Elon Musk brand brain implant, which just answers whatever you want. But be sure and update your brain implant to version 2.343.44 due to a remote code execution bug, because I wonder what a buffer overflow in your brain actually would feel like. I mean, would it feel really cool? Like you just suddenly go off on wild tangents thinking about strange things, or would you just sort of like stroke out? I guess we'll find out soon. But anyway, it seems like it's a little soon to turn this stuff over to the AI and turn them loose on the innocent. I mean, there's a lot of concerns about the information, but on the other hand, which link did you click when you search for things that can get stuck in zippers? I mean, did you click the first one at the top, or did you go halfway down the screen and click another one? Or do you go to page 9,408 and click one of those? I mean, the links don't really have any validity either, right? I mean, I can put up a website in 30 seconds that proves Einstein was wrong about everything. Everything, man. Quantum entanglement, quantum enschmanglement. I mean, come on. I can put up a quack medicine, and if I get the meta tags right, I'll be right there when you search for Japanese sex pillows with a cure. I mean, a lot of outcry went up that AIs may give you misinformation, and they're right. I mean, we will have to learn how to use this effectively and spot bad info, just like when you looked up a recipe for corned beef and it involved lye, red phosphorus, and Sudafed. I mean, you had to ask yourself, will this be a tasty lunch, or am I about to be addicted to meth and corned beef? It's hard to say. So I was there 3,000 years ago when Archie was used to search for ASCII 2 porn, and we have learned how to deal with it to some degree and all the iterations in between. But a lot more people with a lot less knowledge of systems are using this thing now than when I was using Archie. And when Archie 2 Electric AI Boogaloo comes out and advises you to sprinkle a thin, healthy coating of red phosphorus onto a 5-pound brisket, we might need to be sure that people realize that could be a bad idea. Although, people keep following their GPSs into the East River when they're trying to get to Shake Shack. So there's probably just not much hope for the human race in general. Oh, and does anybody have any road flares I could borrow? I've got a big lunch thing coming up. Yeah, so. Stately, plump Josh Marpet came from the stairhead bearing a bowl of lather on which a mirror and a razor lay crossed. Please welcome the only man who's read Ulysses more than I have, Josh Marpet. Hi, Josh.
Red phosphorus brisket coatings. Now that's an opening. Good Lord. But you're right. I mean, and to extend on that, 80% of Google's revenue is paid search. And so AI is terrifying the hell out of them. And if they can use AI to do that and still generate payments and still generate, AdWord revenue, they're going to do it as fast as they can, because otherwise they're going to lose the eyeballs. So I get it. It makes sense.
Absolutely.
But,
no, it does.
It's interesting how you brought it back from the past to the future about where it used to be to where it's going, because that's what my story is about as well. But mine is about password cracking. So effectively.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, thank you. So a few days ago, May 10th and 11th, a gentleman, a solar designer, SolarDiz, gave a talk at OpenWall in Berlin. Not a talk at OpenWall, at OffensiveCon 2024 in Berlin, about password cracking. And he put his slides up, and I absolutely love the presentation. I think it's very, very cool. And it was really the past, present, and future of password cracking. So what happened? I mean, Solar Designer went all the way back to PDP-11s and how fast could they crack passwords? Okay. And compared the speeds to modern 4090 GPUs from NVIDIA, which we were talking about before the show started, and how expensive they are, and ridiculously expensive, because everybody from cryptocurrency to AI to password crackers are competing for them again. There was a short window where you could get a GPU for not a ridiculously inflated price. Unfortunately, that window closed, and we're back to, oh my God, I'm going to spend how much on a new computer? So it's kind of ridiculous. It's almost, the scary part is, if you want to actually get a maxed out computer, it's almost cheaper to get a Macintosh than it is to get a PC with a decent video card. That's the terrifying thing. Okay, and that's because they're doing their own silicon over at Apple. But anyway, so SolarDiz did a really good presentation. The link goes to actually put his slides up. So I went through all the slides. Everything from what is password cracking, how does password cracking work, how did it work 20 or 30 years ago with the PDP-11s. Is that 30 years ago now? Or is that, are we going on 40 years with PDP-11s?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking this, like, God, am I that friggin' old? The answer is yes. Yes, you are, Josh. Okay. But not as old as Doug. Okay. Or Jeff Mann, let's be clear. So anyway, talks about key derivation, talks about where you get the keys, where you get the, what kind of passwords and passphrases can you crack in what kind of amount of time. Actually fascinating stuff. And so there's a really neat historical background to that. There's what did we do 20 years ago and 10 years ago and 40 years ago, because he actually goes back to the 60s and 70s and compares the speeds. He tries to do it in as close to apples comparisons as possible. Massive respect, because that's not easy. Comparing a modern PC with a 4090 GPU and it to a PDP-11 is kind of tough to get apples to apples comparisons. Okay, just a wee bit. But also, it was interesting because he compared how passwords are generated when salting came about, for example, and password hash stores, and we started doing hashing and salting of passwords to make it more difficult to crack. It was really fascinating stuff. SolarDiz did an amazing job on this presentation. If you have any interest in password cracking or understanding really, really difficult problems and how we break them down in order to really take care of them, to brute force them, whatever, really good presentation to go over. Seriously, I'm waiting for the video to come out because I really want to watch it. But anyway, there's like 70 some odd slides, so it's pretty inclusive. He's got a lot of stuff in there. But you've got a real hard problem with this, because nowadays we have fast GPUs. We have the ability in the near future to use the NVIDIA unified memory. We have the ability to use neural networks and LLMs to help crack passwords and deduplicate them. Because once you have a cracked password database, I have rainbow tabled effectively everything I can possibly rainbow table. Okay. You need a neural network, an LLM, to go through and deduplicate it all to make it as fast and efficient as possible. Part of the problem is not just the cracking. Part of the problem is just the comparison to see whether it's an actual word, to see whether it's a word that makes sense or a passphrase that makes sense. And hey, I've got 15 copies of the same thing. Let's get it down to one and it'll make it faster to do the comparisons, okay, to find something that actually works. This is a fascinating point. LLMs, neural networks, expert systems are actually going to be a huge part of password cracking rigs in time to come. So let's just make it easy and go passwordless. Honestly, let's just do certificate authentication if we can for the next 20 years or so, because honestly, the long and the short of it is that while password cracking was useful and it will remain useful in certain circumstances, that effectively at the end of the day, if we can just get rid of passwords, we will effectively get rid of this entire class of problem. I'm good with that. But as we all know, there's going to be people and companies that do it with the least lowest bidder on the work. And so therefore, what are they going to do? They're going to use passwords because it's the easiest thing in the world to do. So password cracking will still remain viable and still remain a serious issue. However, as we go along, it's more and more relevant for very, very, as he puts it, serious computer science and engineering and non-trivial social aspects. I really like that. So it's a significant field. It's a lot of math. It's a lot of science. There's a low barrier to entry. You can play with it very easily. But when you get into it, it is a serious amount of science and math to do this properly. And it's actually fascinating math. But I'm weird that way. I think it's a fascinating topic. I cannot recommend reading this presentation enough. The link is directly to the presentation. The video will be out in another few days, I think. And definitely, if you have any interest in understanding how authentication and authorization works, go through this presentation. It's really well done. Back to you, Doug.
Thank you, Josh. Just for reference purposes, PDP-11 debuted in 1970, so that's 54 years ago. The one I worked on, I think, was manufactured in 1974. I wasn't using it in 1974, but I think it was from that era. So if there's any PDP-11s still out there, wow. There probably are, though, to be honest. It wouldn't shock me a bit. Probably in, some like university somewhere, they've still got one running.
I know there's a VAX running a silver mine, and there's a PDP-11 running parts of a theme park somewhere, if I remember correctly.
Wouldn't shock me a bit. I mean, those things were bulletproof, and I was never a VAX fan, but I did love DEC 10s. I migrated to DEC 10 like in 1981, and that was my main platform. I was a sysop on a DEC 10, and they had a PDP-11 that was being phased out, and I got to pull the bus bars on it when they killed it. I felt like it was some kind of creepy euthanasia thing. It was like, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, but you've got to go. And hauled it off to the scrap
So
heap.
actually, you'll like this. The PDP-1170 was basically 800 per second hashes that it could crack. Okay, cracks per second. And the modern 4090, there it is almost 2,000 gigahashes per second.
Yeah, it seemed cool at the time, but yeah, it wasn't exactly fast. But just for all you junior programmers out there listening, back when people were writing code on the PDP-11, they had to submit their jobs, and the turnaround time on the job submissions in the University Computing Center averaged sometimes 3 to 4 hours. So you want to see if you got errors, you send it 3 to 4 hours later to get a result. This is, oh no, you misspelled this word on the first line. And they got to do it all again. So yeah, it was a little tedious, but yeah. So gigahashes.
Not your semi.
Yeah, gigahashes. All right. And finally, OpenAI debuted GPT-4 little o. I don't know how you say it, but 4 little o, with a small o meaning omni. Omni everything, everywhere, all at once. Omni, omnis, omnium, omnium, ramina ite domum, pie lesu domine dona es requiem. Sorry, I think I might have been a medieval monk or something in a past life, but maybe a medieval monk DJ. So like, those like funky beat, acid house, Gregorian chants kind of thing, like, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Or maybe I was the Balrog of Helm's Deep. It's hard to say anymore. or the Witch King. I could be any of those things. But anywho, GPT-4o is a new update that can converse using speech in real time, can read emotional cues, and respond to visual input. I can see where this is going. I'm not even going there. But the new version is going to be free for Chat-GPT users and have an API that's rolling out in a few weeks. They said that it can respond to audio inputs in 320 milliseconds or less, which is similar to human response times in conversation. Now, previously, we had some voice mods for ChatGPT, and it was a bit slow, and it responded more like me when I'm reading and people are asking me questions. But the interview was kind of tedious, but we did do a show on it. So if you want to go look for it, you can see it. But the new one even apparently incorporates sound effects. So I guess that's going to be like Paul's fart noise generator or something, laughing and singing into the responses. Oh my God. So now when I ask ChatGPT how to make corned beef meth, it's going to be like those singing flight attendants on Southwest Airlines that some people think are funny at first, but after the fifth verse, you start AI searching for things like how to poison a singing flight attendant with nothing more than what's on board the plane and not get caught. I mean, I did that interview and it was a bit draggy. So I guess I'll have to try that again soon and see if it bursts into song. Like when I'm asking questions of like, what happens if I genetically cross a cat with an octopus? There's so many jokes there that I can't say on the air. I'm going to get back a Broadway version of Tentacle Cat sung by Rum Tum Tugger. I'm like, it's getting really weird here, guys. But, anyway, it can only get weirder. And when the going gets weird, the weird turn professional. I miss you, Hunter. Coward. But anyway, I will next be live at the Fairmont in Dallas, Texas on the 21st and 22nd, which is next week, so I better prepare something. That will be at the Millennium Alliance CISO meeting, so be sure and get me a free drink if you're around. And Josh and Aaron will be doing the news Friday and Tuesday, so you won't actually be seeing me because I will be away. But thanks, Josh. And I will be away on Friday due to commencement at the university, but Josh and Aaron will keep you entertained. So I'll see you soon. Bye.